Up until now, we have been working with code for a particular type of application. This type of application is called console app and is the most basic type of .NET Core application that can be made. Essentially, a console app is a program that doesn't have any graphical user interface. Instead, it is operated via command line utility. If you are using Windows, the command line utilities you can use are command prompt or PowerShell. PowerShell is way more advanced than command prompt, so using it to run a simple console app would probably be an overkill. On Mac or Linux, the command line utility would be either terminal or bash. The interface that runs between the command line utility and the operating system components that allow you to execute commands and run programs is known as shell. This is where the name PowerShell comes from. This is also why you can hear an expression shell script. Inner components of the OS that aren't directly accessible by user actions are known as kernel. So, to remember how an operating system works, on a high level, you can use an analogy of a nut that consists of hard outer shell and a soft inner kernel. A standard way of executing shell command is to enter a name of a particular command utility into the shell. The name may be then followed by commands and/or parameters. For example, when we build and run our code, we are using .NET as the command utility, and the name of the DLL file that our software is compiled into as one of the command line parameters. Important features of any console app are so-called standard input and standard output. Standard input allows for values to be entered into the program from a user typing those in. Standard output is the textual output into the console. In C# in particular, system class library, which is a part of standard library of .NET Core, comes with console class, which contains a collection of methods to manage standard input and standard output. For example, console.write method will write any given text into the console. Console write line will write any text provided, while also placing a line terminator at the end of it, so any output generated afterwards will appear on a separate line. There are also methods for reading from the standard input. Read, readLine, and readKey are examples of those. Read method will read a single character from the input. ReadKey will read any key pressed, including functional keys. You can, for example, use this method to read SK or Enter. ReadLine will read any inputted line of text as soon as return key has been pressed. We have already used some of those methods in our previous code samples. Now, let's make a more complex console app that demonstrates the usage of all of these methods. Let's create a basic console-based calculator. This will also introduce you to another aspect of C# that we haven't yet covered: operators.